Welcome to another episode of the Sonic Symphonic podcast with me, your host, Ben Sebastian. This episode, we're going to explore a band called Moonlight Shade. This is Judgement Day. surprise ending there. Judgment Day. It's really nice to kind of come back to the podcast and feature something symphonic. You kind of know from the videos on the channel that I kind of go around the mill of stuff, which is all well and good, but as much as I am a lover of the extreme stuff, you know, the symphonic stuff kind of reminds me of the early days of me getting into this sort of style, or all of these genres of music. You know, back in the days of early Nightwish and Epica, I was lapping that sound up, and these guys have authentically kind of created something extremely similar that is pleasing to my ears. So whilst this is a bit more chilled out than some of the stuff I typically feature, I absolutely, something it's got an adorable quality which I love. So Moonlight Shade, they've kind of been around since 2005 as a project, and it seems like some members have sort of come and gone, and the main composer, the instrumentalist behind this, a gentleman called Beren, if I've got that correct, has really kind of gone through the mill with getting this project to sort of come to life with the departure of key players, and then trying to find out particularly singers that are kind of willing to sort of go the distance and do all the recording and all that kind of stuff. But it seems that now, well, certainly from late 2022, December 2022, in fact, they informed me, it has now sort of come alive with the introduction of vocalist Laura Gomez. And since that period, they've been recording. They're a sort of a YouTube entry point only band at this stage. I'll populate the links below. Do give them a follow. The single I just played was released 7 months ago, so I'm sort of doing their sort of history in order of YouTube release. So let us now continue with a little journey that we are going on. 31st of January this year, the second YouTube release, Let There Be Light. There Be Light, a very dramatic affair with string suspense and stabbing choirs. Absolutely love it. I actually really enjoy the treatment of the strings, the choirs. They're very difficult to mix. There's a lot of mid in these instruments, this kind of setup, competing. You've got the sort of mid ranges of the bass, you've got the mid ranges of the guitar. It's where the frequencies live, and the strings, and then of course choirs. It's very difficult to get the balance right. I struggle, and I'm sure hundreds of others, despite all of the stuff that we can watch, we can read. You know, it's just a bizarre science, and it doesn't, whatever method you approach, it doesn't work for every track, so everything is very, very individualistic when it comes to this, but the balance is fair and beautifully so. It's the mix down has been captured beautifully. All elements or components of the mix are perfect, absolutely perfect, and they kind of need to be in this kind of symphonic music, because you mess it up, it just sounds thin, reedy. Another element that captures me, having heard 2 tracks now, is the vocals. Vocals, stunning as they are, particularly in that kind of drop down section, 3/4 to the end. Really, that's a goose pimple moment. But it's so much sort of high end there that can be unbalanced when it comes to this type of vocal, particularly again in trying to give the strings some of that air, because they're very sort of mid-heavy. It's very tempting, and I've mixed this down before, where you're kind of uplifting the strings to give them more air, but then that kind of gets in the way of sort of soprano kind of range voices such as this, and then you end up solving the guitar and the strings mid problem, but then you have another problem on your hands with the vocalist. Again, this is all beautifully, and I have to say that the band make a point. You know, they're not signed, they are just they are recording, you know, at home. They are mixing it down themselves. They are doing absolutely everything, and you know, the quality that they've delivered is really, really nice. It's nice and warm, it has enough air, and it's a joy to listen to. And now, something with a bit of historical influence and a little bit of a lesson. In 1633, in his trial before the Inquisition, Galileo Galilei was forced to recant his claims that the Earth moves around the Sun rather than the converse. Despite his recantation, the Church's proclamations to the contrary, or any conviction or doctrine of men, the Earth, of course, does in fact move around the Sun. As a side note, there is no evidence, and Galileo probably never said the sentence in its course. That is the inspiration, it seems, for their 6th of July 2023 release, and yet it moves. Oh! it's like suddenly with that offering, Moonlight Shade get even more symphonic, much more sort of instruments sort of piled in there. I felt a dynamical change in the mixing with panning to the left, to the right, perhaps more so than my ears detected in the previous two, and its introduction of lead playing and a much more sort of dynamically kind of classical piece. It's almost like sort of there's an evolution in the compositional style with this offering, and I very much enjoyed it. If there was one thing I would perhaps just tweak a little bit, the lead guitar that's just down a little bit. Very high, but it's the frequency kind of it sort of interrupted the flow and the rest of the sort of feel of the track. But that's, you've got to remember these guys, are not spending thousands in studios. They are doing this all over themselves. But it was nice to hear such a clear evolution from tracks on this track, from track 3, tracks 1 and 2, as they're releasing them. And so, as we approach the kind of end of this episode, I would love to see Moonlight Shade continue. I'd like to see them evolve to, eventually a website presence. This stuff is definitely worthy of, distribution to all of the sort of the mainstreaming platforms, Spotify, Apple, Deezer, all of that kind of stuff. And I hope that they take that next level and expand their fan base. I'm going to post links to YouTube, Instagram, Twitter that they've got. I seriously hope as many of you as possible give them a follow, increase the numbers, help increase the exposure, and above all, I really hope that this duo continue composing and releasing and developing their sound. They say that their main inspirations are sort of the typical in symphonic. You've got early Nightwish, sort of Target era Nightwish, Epica, Xandria, all of that. But these guys have their own warm sound. They have their own classical sort of background and sort of training and style input into this, and they have a very sort of warm, comforting aura about their music. For those watching a video, this isn't one of those videos where I'm dancing about all over the place. It's always typically sort of weird, more extreme stuff that gets me going like that. But this has been an absolute enjoyable run. I'm absolutely enjoying recording this, and I'll enjoy editing it, and I'll enjoy keeping an eye on them. So again, I just want to convince you guys to give them some support. Leave some comments here below, leave some comments on their stuff, and subscribe to their channels and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm going to leave you with the final track, Age of Darkness. As at the time of recording, I uploaded to YouTube about 5 days ago on the 26th of July. And it's a kind of tribute to epic power metal, and it features drums from one Sergio Estefania, and again, a development in the sound. So let's give this a whirl. This is the final track of this episode. I've been Ben Sebastian. Moonlight Shade, Age of Darkness.
Stars light in the night with the fire.
lovely outro, and this is kind of a lesson to me as a podcaster, to be careful of what one says before listening to a track blind. And I do prefer listening to tracks, was it blind? Deaf, you know what I mean. I don't listen to stuff before I go in. Maybe I'll catch the first 20 seconds just to kind of catch the vibe. But wow, what a stunning evolution, what a stunning ending to this episode. An increase of pace, a very wide dynamic kind of range of instrumentation, a lovely outro, and a bigger, fuller sound. This track was the shining star out of all four, and it just shows you what the band are capable of. And and the lead guitar there, at least to my ears, that kind of point that I made about the previous track, that wasn't present. You know, this is a band that is just kind of constantly evolving and full of surprises. And it was not 6 minutes ago I was apologising for not being so sort of, you know, movement, you know, orientated. Unfortunately, I seem to have a sort of a bit of a name for my sort of wild reactions, and I unreasonably probably punish myself when I'm not, you know, as full on, but in different styles, different music, different styles of reaction. And I shouldn't recriminate myself, but despite me kind of raising that point, there I was. If you're certainly watching a video, much more engaged. This one woke me up even more so. Very talented musicians, talented producers, in fact. I guess this is all self-done, and yeah, again, I reiterate my point. Give them a like, give them a follow. This has been a fantastic little journey of an episode, and I hope you all, video watchers and audio listeners, enjoyed it as much as I did, because excellent. You know, I will be keeping an eye out for the next Moonlight Shade release, and hopefully it's not too far away. I've been Ben Sebastian, this has been the Sonic Symphonic podcast, and now it's the end.